Hello, this is Ronnie McBrayer. Thank you for finding my podcast. If you are burned out on religion, to quote Eugene Peterson's marvelous paraphrase, but faith is still important to you, or if you consider yourself a spiritual exile with no real place of belief to call home, then I have you especially in mind. I hope you'll stick around. Thanks again for listening.
The questions that young children ask of their parents are often impossible to answer. And if they're not impossible to answer, they are inappropriate to answer, given the child's age. I thought about a few this week. What is love? What makes the sky blue? When will you die? When will I die? Does it hurt to die? Was I at your wedding? Who made the rules that kids have to go to bed early? Where do babies come from? Who is God? Have you ever seen God? Were you a kid like me once? Where was I before I was born? If everything is better in heaven, why couldn't God have just started with that? Do you have a real name? Have you ever been to jail? Cindy and I were asked all of these questions and many more by our boys when they were growing up. And it doesn't take you long after they give you your parent's license. You did get a parenting license, right? And a manual? Of course you did. It doesn't take long after you become a parent to realize the curious mind of a child can stump the oldest and wisest among us. And of course, the biggest question of all is why? Why is water wet? Why is the sun yellow? Why is it called yellow? Why does Uncle Michael have a scar on his face? Usually ask way too loud right in front of Uncle Michael. Why do you have wrinkles? Why did Grandpa get sick? Why does our dog sniff your butt? Why was I born on my birthday? A study commissioned by the BBC a few years ago found that children between the ages of 2 and 5 can ask upwards of 100 questions an hour. And I believe it. Most beginning with why, ranging from the hysterical to the existential. This same study concluded that children, in asking these questions, aren't trying to be annoying. They aren't trying to get attention. They're genuinely curious. And we should not be surprised. 90% of human development is complete by age 5. It's extraordinary. Their little bodies and brains growing so fast they can't get enough information. So answer the questions the best that you can, and when you don't have an answer, confess that to them as well and promise them that you'll figure it out together, I think. And you know the question that's the worst of them all. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? For all their whirling, derving curiosity, young children cannot process the passage of time. They can't do it. And I would say to my boys, we will be there after you watch 3 more episodes of Thomas the Tank Engine or the Teletubbies or whatever. But inevitably, the question would come, are we there yet? How many episodes of Thomas have you watched? I don't know, then I don't know either. And then I would turn into the old man yelling at children. You have a DVD player. Watch your little show. You have a Game Boy or a DS or a Switch. They all changed. Play your game and be quiet. I didn't have those things when I took a road trip as a kid. We didn't have anything. Me and your Aunt Connie, we just rolled around in the back of the station wagon like BBs in a barrel, trying to get the truckers to honk their horn at us when they went by. And then they would say, why can't we do that? No book, no movie, no show, game, puzzle, treat, promise, threat, or even a harmless little dose of Benadryl. I did it. I confess. Are your allergies bothering you? Nope, take this. Go to sleep. None of that could stop them from asking the question, and I'm sure all the technological distractions and creature comforts of the current era of parenting fail as well. Are we there yet? No, we are not. If you ask me again, God adds another Teletubby episode to the trip. But to be fair, are we there yet is not a bad question to ask, so long as you are not a 5-year-old riding in the back seat. I think it's an excellent question for those who are making an assessment of their current state of affairs. Are we there yet? For those pondering their career goals, their investment ambitions, are we there yet? The CEO or COO of an organization looking at the 1-year, 2-year, 5-year plans and growth projections, are we there yet? An NGO or a not-for-profit group seeking to deliver the greatest possible impact for their targeted demographic, are we there yet? For those getting ready to launch a business, to buy a home, to start a family, to plan their retirement, to implement a succession plan, are we there yet? Is an excellent question to ask. But there is one area of operation where this question is as fruitless as a road trip interrogation in regards to maturity, in regards to personal, emotional, spiritual growth, growing up, being shaped in the image of Christ, becoming all that we could be and all that we should be. Are we there yet? And the answer is always no. The road unwinds forever. Still, we press on. We keep the faith because we know, as Paul wrote to the Philippians, I am certain that the God who began this good work within you will continue it, bring it to its completion on the day that Christ returns. We are in process then, never arriving but always moving along, never reaching the end of this life but stretching out toward the finish line nonetheless. As Paul also said to the Philippians a little later in that letter, I have not arrived, but I look forward to what lies ahead. I press on to reach the end of this race. So there is no finishing, no completion to the life of faith. There is only going on. In Latin, we are in feria, in process. We are becoming. We are in formation, moving on, but never arriving. Are we there yet? Of course not. But the work in you, the work in me, the work in us will reach completion in the end. In the meantime, we trust God to bring all things to their appropriate conclusion further on down the road. Well, all that to make a very direct, personal, and particular application this morning. 19 years ago this past week, this operation we call A Simple Faith formed in the dining room of the home of Michael and Cheryl Belk in Watercolor. This week, this very Sunday, we begin our 20th year. It breaks my brain to think about it, that it has moved so quickly. The Belks moved away, as so many from the beginning have done. Moved away, passed away, drifted away. I went through pictures this week. Susan Thornton, Michael and Laura Granberry, Larry and Melissa Davis, the McBrayers, to my recollection, were the only ones left from those earliest days around that dining room table. If I missed someone, I apologize. It has been 2 decades, and I'm much older now than I was then. A history lesson for you real quick. When A Simple Faith began around that dining room table, I stood on the brakes. I was not interested in becoming the lead pastor of a church ever again. No, thank you. Been there and done that. Let's take some time, I said. Let's keep things at a Bible study level, I said. But oh no. There was so much momentum, so much excitement. Let's get started. Well, okay then. And off we went down this winding road. It was weeks, it was months even, before I could really think about what in the world we were doing. I said in the very first public worship service, the last thing any community needs, and the last thing this community needs, is just another church. There are too many of those already. But every community needs a safe, certain, welcoming place for people to explore what it means to follow Christ. So let's be that kind of place and not just a church. And then I went and thought about what I'd said. We started so quickly, so organically, that I needed a couple of months to get my head around it all. But honestly, that's always been my way. I've said numerous times that I like to jump out of the airplane and build the parachute on my way down to the ground. A Simple Faith was exactly that. So it was in the autumn of 2007, before I could get my head and heart around what we intended to do. And I had no intention of ever being the lead pastor of a congregation ever again, but here I was. And Cindy and I took a trip to Arizona, a glorious high desert vacation. And there I wrote a letter to the people of A Simple Faith at the time, imagining what could be. And I would like to reshare that with you today, if you would allow. Some of it is dated, but it is remarkably on point all these years later. Beginning our 20th year, it seems appropriate. I arrived in Arizona last weekend, thinking about our collective future. I am writing this letter from Sedona that is a dream of the possible future for those of us who are walking this road together. Last Sunday morning, I rose early for a walk and an exploration of my new surroundings. The rocks of Sedona were glowing that brilliant red as the sun began to shine. The sky was as blue as turquoise, and the wind was howling across the desert. As I walked and observed, coffee in hand, I saw a little church in the distance. And I thought to myself, I'll go over there, sit in the sanctuary before anybody arrives, and think about things. There was only one problem. I couldn't get there. I tried to walk in a straight line toward the little church, but it met only concrete and adobe walls, security fences, and the like. I took to the local sidewalks. They led to nowhere. I walked down the road, nothing but a dead end. I finally gave up, refilled my coffee in the hotel lobby, and sat down on a bench outside. And my inability to get to church that morning got me thinking. Our community, our world, is filled with people who desperately need and long to commune with God. They hunger for a relationship with the more than, but they are alone in their homes and their condos with no real connection with God or even other human beings. They need faith, they need hope, they need good news, but they can't get to it. There are too many barriers, too many fences, too many dead ends, and all of these were made by people, not by God. So they just go home, drink their coffee or their scotch, and try to relate to God alone with different levels of success. And I began to imagine a new and a different world, the world that Simple Faith might occupy in the days ahead, maybe the years ahead, should we last that long. What if Simple Faith became a place that seekers of hope and faith could actually access? What if we developed the skills, not of getting the biggest crowd possible, but the skills of spiritual navigation, helping those on their journey toward Christ who have had little success in the process actually find and follow Him for a lifetime? Imagine what that might look like. Imagine what kind of place this will become if we hold intensely to our focus of being a community of faith that simply seeks to worship God, follow Christ, and serve the world. This could become a place where Baptists and Catholics, Lutherans and Anglicans, Nazarenes and Presbyterians, agnostics and whatever, come together, not in some kind of interdenominational goulash, but as a post-religious gathering, because we recognize that denominations are not the answer, because there is no hope in organized religion, but there is tremendous hope in a faith that organizes to live out the kingdom of God. I like to compare our gathering to a great community choir. We come here from different backgrounds, different schools of song, different tastes in music, but it is the love of the music and the singing with each other that binds us together. Just imagine what kind of place this will become to raise our children and our grandchildren. And God, 19 years ago, to think I would be a grandfather when a place where we offer much more than goldfish crackers and feel-good Bible stories on Sunday mornings, though I enjoy goldfish crackers and feel-good Bible stories very much. Imagine a place where we offer more than overly priced, consumer-driven retreats to our teenagers to the ski slopes or the latest and greatest religious Disneyland. Imagine if we offered more than the standard religious programming because that is what is expected. Instead, what if we offer our children a powerful, life-changing, life-forming story of what it means to be the people of God on mission in the world? What if, imagine if you can, our children actually learn from us what it means to be a living, breathing human being who functions in concert with God's great creation, and that we are not controlled by the materialistic, individualized, greedy rules of this world? What if our children, when the day comes for them to leave us, choose not the path that leads to the highest corporate salaries, the greatest personal success, or the most profitable bottom line? Rather, they learn to become men and women of justice who will care for the poor, who will work to heal and help others in Jesus' name, and who will speak out against systematic domination, whether it be governmental, economic, or religious, in defense of what can and should be. In my imagination, I see the children of this little congregation becoming young adults who understand that the most radical thing they can do with their lives is not making more money, becoming an American Idol, or driving a gold-plated Hummer while living in a Malibu mansion. The most radical and world-changing thing they can do is to stop believing in the dominant systems and rules of this world, because all this world is passing away. And the most radical thing they can do is unplug and defect from the expected and follow Christ instead. In raising my own children, I often think of myself as Morpheus in the movie The Matrix. This is the dated part. If you haven't seen the movie, this won't make much sense. Forgive me. But if you have seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The Matrix is a dangerous, oppressive, totalitarian world where human beings are kept sedated and asleep and used to keep the whole suicide machine running. Morpheus comes to Neo, played by Keanu Reeves, with one simple message: wake up. Unlock this cage you were born into and are surrounded by. Leave the darkness and come into the light. I must teach my own children, and hopefully the children who gather here, to live in the light of Christ, even though that will mean living differently than how the world behaves. I imagine our children learning here to abandon the life lived by the rules of a fallen society and instead to cling to Christ. And likewise, for we who are adults, imagine what could happen if we finally decided that the Dow Jones Index is not God. That the occupier of the White House now or in 2008 or whenever is not Lord. That the rules and stories that control our society are wrong. The way into the future is not paved with more and more possessions, with higher and higher standards of living, with the blood and corpses of our enemies. There is a new way to live, and Jesus is that way. For those of us living in the early years of the 21st century, there is a splinter in our mind that tells us something is horribly wrong with the world. We try to ignore it, we try to sedate it, we try to rationalize it, but still we have this inescapable sense that something must happen to change the world, or this world just might not survive much longer. We understand deep in our hopeful hearts that we must be a part of God's solution for the world and not a part of the perpetual problems in this world. I did a phone interview this week with a writer from the 30A Review. She asked me questions for 45 minutes about our little church in advance of an issue on faith communities on 30A coming out this spring. And I told her I never set out to start a church or a religious organization. I set out simply to model a distinct way of life, the way of Christ. She was intrigued, and so I told her about my Uncle Lamar, who, in addition to being a Baptist preacher and a farmer, is the best carpenter in all of Gordon County, Georgia. He is now in his mid-70s. I'd like to edit that to let you know that he's still living, and in his mid-90s. He's still farming. He's on the tractor every day in the summer. And if he really likes you, he'll even still come to your house at 94 years old and do cabinet work for you. Sometimes I don't know if I really want to live that long. You ever have that question? But boy, maybe those genetics are in me. I don't know. I spent many of my summers working for my uncle. I'm not a master builder, but everything I learned about building came not from a classroom or a book, but at his hands. Watching, learning, listening, imitating. Now imagine if this becomes a place with that kind of instruction, a place where we learn to live and be like Christ as we watch, listen, and imitate Jesus. Finally, a prominent American evangelist speaking of our world said recently, if the Titanic is destined to sink, why should we rearrange the chairs? But I don't believe this world is destined to sink. This world will end, but it will be for the purpose of a new beginning. God is and God will make all things new. And rather than scrambling for the lifeboats, seeking to save our own necks, we get this opportunity to join God in this work of renewal and recreation. That work includes telling others this great good news that in a world of despair, there is a different, hopeful way to live. Already I hear from folks about what we could and should do to make a simple faith better. And by better, they typically mean to make it more Methodist, more Catholic, more Presbyterian, more Pentecostal, more Baptist, or more whatever. I always respond to these suggestions with a simple thank you. And I mean that. But let me be very clear. For those who want machinery, membership, a particular denominational slant, the absence of structural and biblical tension, a marketing plan, if you want age-graded programs to meet the needs of everyone from the cradle to the nursing home, steeples, robe-clad choirs and clergy, well-polished and well-timed worship services, capital campaigns to build the next big building, you will find a simple faith to be a very frustrating place. But here's the bright side. If you need a place to get well, if you long to experience grace, if you're hurting and broken, if you are a seeker on this journey you haven't got questions for, much less the answers, if you have been injured by an abusive faith system, if you're looking for the space to ask questions and express your doubts without getting tied to a stake and burned for it, if you're looking for a place that will not try to fix, trick, or manipulate you, if you've had it with religion, but you know faith in Christ is still worth holding on to, well, this just might be a place for you to call home. Our faith here is small and simple, but the one we have placed our faith in is neither of those things. For I believe that the good news of Christ is bigger than the sin, corruption, crises, and disasters of this present world. If it's not bigger than those things, then it would not be worth believing, for it would not be the good news that the world needs. Now, may God help us to do more than pray for God's kingdom to come. Let us join God in that work. The prophet Isaiah and the apostle Paul both say the same thing. No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has imagined what God has prepared for those who love Him. So down the road we go, hoping for a glimpse of God at work in our world